Okay, now for reals, we're doing this. Okay, you guys already know who I am. I'm Laura. But I can't wait for you all to meet my lovely friend Heather. Excited to sit and talk with Heather because she lived with me while I was first trying to get sober. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really intrigued to hear about what you remember. Mm-hmm. A little nervous to hear about what you remember, and I don't, but that's okay. That's why we're here. Just to have a little bit of context, Heather and I met, we lived together when we both lived in South Lake Tahoe. Mm-hmm. We put up an ad on Craigslist and she responded. And the minute we met on Skype, no, Zoom.
FaceTime.
Mm-hmm. I was like, that's the one. That's the one. She's coming to live with us. And then it was history from there on.
Hell yes, it was. And it was so funny because, like, even just from the Craigslist ad, I knew. I was like, this is the one. This is where I'm going to be living. And then it was magic.
It was a photography. I snapped some good photos with my iPhone 4 back then. Yeah, and so I'm trying to think about where I was with my journey when you moved in. I think I was still like fully drinking. I mean, I was definitely drinking when I met Carl.
You were thinking about it, but then you were still like drinking a lot. And like, I remember like the first time, oh no, you said you were like trying to quit.
Oh really?
Yeah, as soon as I got there, and my first night in Tahoe, we went to Live at Lakeview.
Oh.
And then I remember you are coming back from one of them, you had drinks and you were like, so like, oh my God, I drank, and like just so down and like needed us to like take care of you, and like, oh my God, I was just like, oh, like it was like my first week, you know, and I was like, oh yeah, that was like my first memory. So you were like really trying hard to stop.
I don't remember how old I was. It must have been like,
well, it was 5 years ago.
Before I met Carl.
It was 5 years ago.
But I knew you before I knew Carl, right?
You did?
Didn't I?
I don't think so. I think
was that. You moved in right after.
Okay,
you moved in right after, shortly after I met Carl.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I was trying to get sober.
Yeah.
That was when I was really trying to quit and not nailing it. And Live at Lakeview was my Tahoe friends, you know, Live at Lakeview. Trying to do that sober is
beer
tough.
garden. Woo.
Yeah, and like seeing everybody you know, and yeah, I had a hard time with Live at Lakeview. I do remember that.
Yeah, I remember you came back and you were just like, I drank.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I yeah, you were the first person, so that was at the time. I remember I didn't want anybody to know that I was struggling with my drinking. Mm-hmm. And I was really trying to hide it and trying to like get my drinking under control on my own, trying to quit on my own, and you were like the first person I feel like could really hold space for me while I was in the struggle. And I mean, like, thank God, because you lived with me, and it was hard to hide my drinking from everybody I lived with.
I know, you're like, the outside world, no, but like inside, you're like, guys, I'm freaking out. It was so cute. Yeah, I remember, it was so interesting because I remember, like, at that time, I was much more judgmental than I knew that I was.
Interesting.
But,
I never felt like you were.
Well, I didn't think I was either, but I definitely had judgments. But with you, it's something I don't know why, but I never felt an ounce of judgment for you. Like, even when you came home sloppy and drunk, or, well, I use sloppy.
Yeah.
But like,
I was sloppy.
But I'm just like, I was just watching you and like having so much compassion and like, whoa, like, what does she need, and like, how can I support? Mm-hmm. And I just remember you, like, anytime you had anywhere from like 2 to drunk, you were like so hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. And I just remember being like, I really don't want her to be so hard on herself. Like, this is a tough thing, you know? Yeah. But that was like, I guess that's like the overarching thing, is like, I never ever felt judgment towards you. So maybe that's like that space that you were talking about is like just a space of, that's what I think of as holding space, is a space of non-judgment. and like acceptance and like.
Well, you were the first person to introduce me to the term holding space. Like I never had heard that until you, and I was like, holding space, like what a good way to say that. I don't even know what I thought of it before, like being a good listener, I'm not really sure, but holding space,
for sure.
Right. But now that I understand what holding space means, I'm like, oh my God, you were not only the first person to introduce me to like the term, but you were the first person to introduce me to stuff like doing it well. Like, you know, you listen, you never really like dished out advice, and I always really appreciated that about you, because you'd ask me questions and you'd be like, oh, so why do you think you feel like that? Or like, da, 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 da. And I'd be like, you know what? I don't know. And you would always like help guide me to like my realizations. You never like dished advice or told me what I should do or anything like that. And it was so novel for me. And I just remember being like, just really comforted, and it was like, yeah, it was really cool. And so I really appreciate that so much. It was really special. That's when I was like, I'm keeping her. Like forever and ever.
Yeah, that's so touching and sweet, and thank you for acknowledging that. And it was so cool because like that's something I've really valued for pretty much my whole life, because I didn't have it growing up. But I also didn't meet very many people who would receive that. Like in LA, I mean there were a few people, but mostly everyone was just kind of weirded out by like the questions or like the, you know, the space. And then you were like the first person who was like really curious about it. You know,
I was curious.
Yeah, you're like, you know, and something that like I'm gonna go into a memory. Okay. So you were, you know, you'd been asking me about what it was, and so I'd like tell a little bit. And
like
holding
space? What do you
yeah.
mean? Okay.
And just kind of like, you know, figuring out who I am, like as soon as I got there, you know.
Gotcha.
So, and I could tell like you were curious, but then also kind of like not sure what was going on there, you know. And so I could tell like, okay, well she's curious, but she's avoiding some things, you know. I remember the first time you like really took advantage of that space. I like, my heart went like, because I'm like, oh my God, she's being vulnerable. Oh my God. Like it was like it was just like, it was in the living room, right? You were sitting down, not on the couch, but like next to the coffee table.
Okay.
And I was across from you. So we were just like sitting on the floor on the coffee table.
Oh, like on the long ends of that?
Yeah.
Coffee table? Okay, yeah.
And you like got really vulnerable about like, I think some of the things that were underneath your drinking. And
I
like,
don't remember what that was. Do you remember?
Yeah, well, the only thing I remember like vividly was like you started crying and you had admitted that you had thought about suicide or like not wanting to be here.
Yeah.
And I was like, like
you had to have been the first person I told that to. I'm sure of it.
You were, because you were like,
Okay.
oh, I can't believe I'm saying this right now. Like I can't, but you just, like, and you just
probably
kept
just
going.
came out.
And it just came out, yeah.
How cool that I felt so naturally like comfortable that it just rolled out.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't remember that.
That was really cool. That was like, that's one of my favorite memories of us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I'm sad. It's special though, even.
It's so special. I mean, like my heart is like, that moment I was like, she trusts me. I just like, that means so much to me. Like anytime someone like feels safe enough to let down their walls, like that for me is like,
yeah, totally. I feel
dream come true.
I get it, because I feel like that now. You know, when someone reaches out to me when they're struggling with their drinking, like on social media and stuff, I'm always like, it means so much to me because I know how hard it is to be vulnerable and to ask for help and get past the shame and the pride. It's like,
yeah, I know that one too.
It's hard. I remember you were there when I went to my first AA meeting, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go to AA. I'm so scared. I'm like holding the sheet. There's like all the little meetings on there, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to 2 o'clock meeting in the afternoon. I'm doing it, and you're like, okay, yeah, you got this. You're like my number one cheerleader. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. I was so nervous to go to AA because I was going by myself, and I had all this weird stuff around that.
Yeah, and you were ashamed, didn't want anyone to know, all that kind of stuff, which is so funny to me at the time because I'm like, well, this is just what you're up to, but you're like, no. And then I remember it was something else. I remember when you were like in the times where you would go like a month and you were sober.
Oh, yeah.
To fill that, you like went ham on sugar. I just remember you would like be like in the pantry like, where is the sugar?
What was I eating? I remember I went through like a date
You went through
phase.
like the PB2 with chocolate or something. You had like,
oh my god.
Yeah, you would like, you had your yerba mate and you would like dump sugar in there and like.
I remember I would steal Meech's like pancake mix stuff.
Yes!
I would
pancakes!
Like when nobody was home.
Yes!
I would like take Meech's like pancake mix. She had the crusty stuff. Oh, that stuff was fire. But like, I would like bake the batter and then I'd cook a pancake and then I'd add a bunch of sugar. I liked it really sweet. And then I'd make the pancake and then I'd dip it in the batter.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, and you didn't even cook the batter sometimes.
I would like make, I'd put batter, I'd like make a pancake and then I'd take the cooked pancake and dip it in the raw batter. That's how I loved it.
Yeah,
and I remember nobody would be home. I'd be like, oh yeah, like now's the time. I got cravings. Like I'm just gonna have a bunch of this. And then like I see like you pulling into the driveway, and I'm like, hi, like going stuff. I was so embarrassed.
Shit.
And then like especially didn't want Meech catching me, even though it stuff's like $2. I was like just. I didn't want anyone to know. Like,
no, I get it.
I was doing it. You know what I
mean?
mean?
I always took her Nutella. Like spoon out Nutella, and I'd have to replace it.
Oh my gosh!
And then I would like go.
She was like that freak who could have like sweets and stuff in the pantry and like and have like a bite once a week. And I'm like, what freaking nature does that stuff?
Right.
And
I'm like, if I have Nutella, it's gone in 3 days.
I know. So yeah, so now I'm 3 years and I'm so happy to have you celebrating with me. It means so much.
I'm so happy I could be here for this. I'm like, yes.
It's special because you were a big part of that chapter of my life. And it's weird to think like if you weren't living with me, would I have opened up to anybody about it? I didn't really quite feel comfortable opening up about it with even some of my best friends like Tara and like Robin, like because I feel like they were like doing really well in their life and I didn't want to burden them with my problems.
Yeah.
And they were my best friends. I know they would have been so happy to be there for me, but I just didn't feel like I didn't want to be the burden.
And sometimes it's easier with a newer person.
I guess
too.
that's true.
Sometimes, at least in my experience, like if I'm having a hard time, I won't go to my family. I'll go to a stranger and be like, I'm going through this thing and sometimes it's easier, but anyway, I'm so proud of you and like to have seen you from like step 1 of your journey to like now. It's been, we've known each other for 5 years now, and like to see who you are now and like everything that you've been through and all of your lessons and epiphanies, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm just like in awe of who you are and what you've created, and God, it's so cool. And you've done such amazing work on yourself. And I'm like, this is novel. Like you're sharing your story with more people. It's like, so you start from like not wanting anyone to know, and now you're like sharing like no boundaries in that sense, So I'm just like, that's so exciting for me, like to see that progression and to like have a relationship with you every step of the way. Like that's so cool to me. Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful to have you as one of my best friends, and I'm going to keep you around forever if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
And I'm excited for my wedding next year. She's gonna be my wedding. But our relationship is one of the most special things in my life, and I want you to know how much you mean to me. And if you ever need me for anything, I hope to be there for you as much, even if it was like a salt grain of how much of an impact you've had in my life, then I'll be happy. I'll be happy.
I love you so much.
Thanks for doing this video with me.
You're so welcome. My pleasure.
All right.
She's dope.
The best. Oh,
The best.
and before we go, Heather, if you are in love with her as much as I am, she has her own business where she works with people. I want you to explain a little bit about what you do, because I don't want to botch it.
Okay. So essentially I do photography in a way that really allows space for women to drop into things that they haven't expressed before, or things that they've kind of been repressing, and I take photos of that process. So it's a space for them to just be and find liberation in some of the things that they've been bogged down by, and then have like really cool, raw, emotional photos of themselves, and that tends to really help people create healthier relationships, because that's really important to me.
Her work is amazing. If you haven't seen it, you have to check her out on Facebook or Instagram. You can see some of the work she's done with women and men. But yeah, it's like unbelievable, and the impact that you have in the world is. I'm always in awe of you. I'm like, I can't believe she's my friend. Like, I remember when I was trying to get sober, she was like getting kicked off in her photography career. And now like you are helping people like in such a profound way through your craft. And it's just powerful and moving. So if you want to check out her work, she's building a program right now so that you can work with her online. Certainly check her out on Instagram or Facebook. I will put her links somewhere down here or up here. I don't know what I'm putting this on. YouTube, I think, maybe. Bloop on the bottom of the screen. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing the video with me.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone.